If you have not committed a crime in the United States and you're here illegally, you are not getting blindly deported. We are going to have a due process. The goal of the due process is not to deport you. The goal of the due process is to make sure you have not committed crimes and then give you residency here so you can continue living the life that you've been living.
Good morning, Mike. I was reading an article about immigration, and obviously that was a big push during the election. It's always really been a thing, not even election years, but people always talk about immigration into the country. You know, we are a democracy, land of the free, right? And so the American dream is very prevalent all over the world. We always have people immigrating in. Just recently, though, we've had more illegal immigration, people crossing the southern border, people coming in from the different coasts. And that was a big push for now President-elect Trump. And it was a topic of discussion even with Kamala Harris and how both candidates were going to be handling the illegal immigration problem that we've had over the last couple of years. We had about 10 million people come into this country undocumented, illegally. My big question for you is, like, now that we have that next president slated in, he's got some big ideas, right? In his first term, he started building a wall in 2017. That then got shut down when the next president came in. But like, what do you see as like the big next push to actually make action towards the illegal immigration, I guess, dilemma that we have? And what does that mean for our economy once some of those big pushes are made?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you watch, a lot of the updated conversations and the picks that he's made for his cabinet, and then you watch some of their interviews, it seems very clear that they're going to start at the top. They're going to start with illegal immigrants that are here causing crimes. So they've already been here illegally, they've caused crimes, they've had due process, and now they're behind bars because they were found guilty. They're going to start at the top there and say, we're not holding you here. We're sending you back. You're getting deported, which I think in general, the country understands that. If you look at some of his biggest supporters, Vivek Ramsway, Elon Musk, Elon is immigrant himself. Ramsway's parents are immigrants. It's not anti-immigration, but it is anti-immigrants causing problems in the country. The problem is the rhetoric on the Trump campaign went, like always, it went over the top. It was like, we're sending everybody home, we're rounding them up, blah, blah. And really, that's just to get a emotional push, right? To drive headlines, to get people talking on social media. But when you start to look at it, these people are much smarter than what they present to get the votes and the emotions rolling. So it seems very much like the main focus is going to be on the people that are causing problems. So criminals that are in the country doing crimes in the country. We're not talking about the illegality of crossing the border. That is obviously a crime in and of itself, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the people who crossed the border and then committed crimes in the United States. Those are going to be the first people. It sounds very much like the other huge push is going to be cracking down on the border as far as the cartels sending things over the border. Fentanyl is one that they keep talking about and the number of problems there. But specifically, if we're going to switch and stay very much on the economy, I don't know what the exact numbers were. I mean, it's debated back and forth. But the truth is that the economy relies on these immigrants. The economy has always relied on immigrants, whether it be at the top when we're bringing in doctors, engineers, and high-performing immigration, or whether it be on the bottom, which is more the illegal side of things, where people are coming across and they're taking up those jobs as maids, construction workers, lawn care workers, farm workers. That is the other side of immigration. And the reality is, call it the Trump, people, but in general, government realizes that there is a necessity for that lower end of immigration because otherwise prices will go through the roof. So let's just say, I think I saw 21 million initially when Trump was running. He said, we're going to round up 21 million illegal. Well, he said, we're going to round up the illegal immigrants. And then the number was 21 million. It's not said in the same sentence that we're going to round up 21 million people, but that is definitely inferred. But if we look at that and say, we're going to take care of every illegal immigrant, they're all going to have to go through due process, they're all going to, get deported and have to come back. I mean, of that 21 million, a majority of them do have jobs, which is going to drive prices through the roof. Because let's say you're I know in Iowa is a big Purdue chicken. I remember when we went to college there, Purdue chicken, or maybe it was Tyson chicken, but huge chicken plants, all kinds of immigrants running those chicken plants. Well, I mean, we don't want to go to the stores and pay 2, 3, 4x for the price of chicken because no immigrants are able to work there anymore. And no regular person who grew up in Iowa generation after generation is going to take a $10 job, per hour cleaning up chicken crap at the factory. It's just not going to happen. So they realize that, and there's a fine balancing act there. But at the end of the day, the immigration thing, that is the biggest concern. If you were to send back every illegal immigrant, you would have a loss in tax revenue, because a lot of them do pay taxes. People don't realize that, but a lot of them do actually have Social Security numbers, or they borrow somebody's Social Security number. If you think of that, you could borrow somebody's. But in general, they need to have a way to appear legal. And the way you do that is you have the documentation, whether it's legal or illegal, but you're paying taxes. So if they all go back, we're going to have lost tax revenue. We're going to have inflation and prices go through the roof. We just talked yesterday about tariffs. Well, this would be even worse than tariffs as far as driving inflation through the roof. And it's going to cost a ton of money to hire all the people and get everybody needed to deport all these people. So it's a lose-lose scenario if that idea of, hey, we're going to take 21 million people and send them back to their countries. It's just not likely. And it would crush the economy, which would crush the presidency. So that part is not going to happen. There's just no way they could do that.
Absolutely. And I think you made a good point there to start. I mean, he's a presidential candidate for a moment. Vivek Ramaswamy, I think is how you say his last name. And he talked a lot during his brief campaign that he was an immigrant. He did come in here. We all know Elon is, from Europe, Eastern Europe. So it's very well known that those people that are now holding cabinet positions within Trump's administration, they believe in immigration as a construct. The idea of immigration being able to come here, to our country and do it the right way, they believe in that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. As far as it's not the law breaking act of coming into the country, which is illegal. It is breaking the law, but it's not that everyone is worried about. It's the people who come over. I can't think of the name of the town in Ohio right now, but an entire Venezuelan population Ohio. Moved into this. Yeah, Springfield, Ohio. Moved into Springfield, Ohio, and took over the town. There's another town out in Colorado that was just Aurora, I believe was just taken over, by illegal immigrants. And so it's those events are the ones that everyone wants to get away from. And Trump elected former ICE leader Tom Homan as they call it the border czar, which is kind of a cool name, but he's now the border czar, and that's what he wants to crack down on. He wants to crack down on people coming over that are going to be a problem, right? That are going to be stealing, killing, all the bad things that you can think of, drugs, things like that people are going that they do over here already that have become a problem. That's what he's really focused on. I don't think it's the wall is going to be the, hey, you got to stop and come in the right way. And there's a big cost to that. We can talk about that from an economic standpoint as well. But I think where Trump's administration really wants to go is cracking down on the people who are coming in illegally and then causing problems. Right.
Yeah. A few clarifications real quick. So Vivek is not an immigrant. His parents are immigrants. I just want to make sure we're talking specifically, but Elon from South Africa, and the Springfield, Ohio was a Haitian population. The Aurora, Colorado was the Venezuelans. What's that? Yeah, Elon's from South Africa.
Oh man, look at you. I did not know. Okay.
No, isn't that wild? Yeah.
Today. I was thinking
I just want to make sure that, otherwise we'll be fake news and misinformation out there too.
That's gonna, let the transcript pick that up. That's funny. I had no idea that he was South African. I, for some reason, thought he was Eastern European of some sort, but
yeah, I think the biggest thing is, if you're in the medical world, which most of our listeners are going to be in the medical world, we have people in the family office that are immigrants that don't have their whatever visas that they need. They're still trying to get. I can't even remember all the terms of it, but they've been here practicing as a physician for years. Almost 5 years, maybe more than 5 years now. A long time. And still trying to get the green card for final, it's not citizenship, but permanent residency here. So it is a long, arduous process for somebody who makes good money, has a very good job, doing great things in the community. It's still a very difficult process. So people like to say, just do it legally. And it's it's not that simple to just do it legally, because even if you do everything exactly how you're supposed to, you have a good job, you make good money, it's still a very long and arduous process, and there's no guarantee that it's going to work. So the immigration problem is a lot more than just illegal versus legal, because the legal route is almost impossible. And I think that's a large part of it as well, is you have to solve that problem, because if a physician who is an immigrant to the country is taking years to be able to legally work here in the country, become a permanent resident. All these steps, you get their work visa first. I think it starts with student visa, then your work visa, then you're shooting for the green card. If you have all the means to do that, now put yourself and say, okay, what is it like for somebody who has $0 and they're coming across the border and they just want to work on a farm? They just want to work at the Tyson chicken plants and just make a living. I mean, they have zero chance of following the legal process. They can't afford attorneys to get visas and wait 5 years. They'll never live. I mean, you can't afford to do that. So I think the Trump administration, as much as they talk about these things, as far as we're going to deport everybody, I think they do very much realize that what we have is a broken system. And part of that broken system is that people come here illegally, or people that come here legally are stuck in a very arduous process. We need to fix that. In the meantime, let's take care of the people who are coming here illegally that are causing crimes in our country. For sure, we can't just have a wide open border. I mean, that is like unbelievable that it's just wide open. You can come and go. I mean, America obviously is a place where a lot of people want to live. You can't have that. But I think that's a lot of what we want to talk about is just that fact, right? The economy thrives off of immigration. We don't have enough people. If you look at populations across the world, the United States is one of the most powerful countries and continues to flourish really because of immigration. A lot of these countries, we talk about China a lot, even in Europe though, Germany, a lot of these countries that had very little immigration for years and years. They were very much that nationalist. We are our people. We don't want others coming in and disrupting what we have. Well, they have birth rates that are on a decline so drastic that they may not even exist as a country in the coming decades. I mean, within 50 years, some of these countries won't even have enough people to keep the country working anymore. We don't have that problem because we have immigration. We don't have that problem because our birth rates might be similar, but we have so much immigration that comes that stabilizes our population. And that's because we have not necessarily open border policies, but we're friendly to immigration. We always have been. We've always been known as the melting pot. On top of that, if you look at, I just read a report yesterday, the European Union is struggling because their top talents are leaving Europe to go to the United States and go to the South Asian countries that are the tech entrepreneurs, the dreamers, the doers, the people that are going to create the next business. If you look at the GDP growth of the United States versus Europe and see, it used to be similar. A few decades ago was not that much different. And now you look and the US has just exploded because we're drawing all of the top talent from all over the world to come here and, create new businesses, create new ideas, take ideas and turn them into reality. And that's all on the backs of immigration, that these people from anywhere in the world, if you have a good idea and you want to make it a reality, the United States is the place to come do it. And we want to attract those types of people. So it's not an anti-immigration. Immigration is very beneficial for us. But for sure, you're going to see a cleanup of the people that are coming here and doing it illegally, right? And everything in the world, everything that happens is going to be a blessing and a curse. So if immigration is such a terrible problem, we have these gangs, that's the curse that comes with that type of a policy. The blessing is your GDP goes through the roof. The blessing is the smartest people in the entire world are coming to the United States. Albert Einstein was an immigrant that fled Germany, ended up in the United States. I mean, one of the greatest geniuses of all time. I mean, if you think about even historically, some of the greatest immigrants and what they did for our nation, we continue to attract that top talent. So I think the immigration just gets so, I don't want to say overblown, but misunderstood in the benefits of immigration, the downsides, and what the actual solution to the problem is. I don't have the exact solution, but I can assure you the Trump administration is not sending 21 million people out of the country back to their country. I would assume the Venezuelan gang in Aurora, I would assume they're going to start there and solve that problem. I think they're going to be very focused and make sure that we don't have the issues that we have. The reality is too, right? If you're pro-immigration, you don't want those type of people in the country because they give a bad name for all immigration.
Bad apple.
And you want that to go away as well. I am super excited to introduce to you the Doctors and Dollars 5-Day Financial Challenge. I'm Mike Neubauer, I'm CEO of Grand Vision Companies, and I'm the one that you see on the Wealth Wednesday and Daily Dollar episodes with Nate. So Nate and I are partnering again to do something even more exciting, which is the 5-Day Challenge. We're taking the best of all of our episodes, all of our expertise and knowledge, and we're condensing it into an impactful and purposeful 5-day presentation, 1 hour per day, for 5 days to give you everything you need to build that foundation for your financial future. So if you're looking to gain the pieces, you want those puzzle pieces and find out how they fit in your financial plan, head over to the Doctors and Dollars website, join us on the 5-day challenge. We're putting it together for free, so you got nothing to lose. We look forward to seeing you on the inside.
Yep. No, yeah. Every situation has a bad apple that kind of puts a little bit of a tarnish on all the good things that come with it. But yeah, I think, I mean, with Tom Homan coming in, former director of ICE, now being the border czar, from a budget standpoint, there's definitely going to be a lot more money that's pushed towards ICE. So that's kind of what my next question is, because I got to imagine if I'm a physician or high income business owner listening to this, in my mind I'm thinking, okay, how does this affect me, right? Like, what does this mean? Are my taxes going to go up so that they can cover the costs of that it takes to deport these people? Are my taxes going to go up, or are these tariffs going to affect me because they need to keep building the wall? That back in 2017 was costing $20 million a day to build. What does this look like from an economic standpoint? I mean, I think I know the answer, that they'll just increase the budget, right? Everyone will get together that's putting the budget together and say, hey, we gotta add an extra, $5 billion on this part of our budget because we need to start making some actions here. Does that mean that taxes rise to cover that cost, or is that just more of a budget deficit and that we go into down the future?
The reality is and that's what we talk about a lot, right, is the political campaigns preach all these things that are meant to drive emotion. At the end of the day, it will have very little effect on the everyday American. They think that it's going to have a huge effect. It really will not even be noticeable besides what you see in the news. It's not like we're running into illegal immigrants on the street every day. We're not even going to recognize whether they're here or not. Same thing on your pocketbook. It's really not going to see a change in anything on your pocketbook at all. The one thing that we'll see what comes of it, supposedly started the Department of Government Efficiency. Supposedly there is a ton of cuts, and even just some of the cuts that they've brought up so far, it's tough to know because it's not a real government agency, which is why Elon and Vivek, they can't be technically government officials because then they would have conflict of interest policies because they have government contracts. So it's a very fine line and gray area. So really it's just suggestions. But I mean, if you see some of the suggestions and some of the budget items that they've brought up so far, I mean, there's a lot of wasteful spending that just doesn't make sense. So I think a lot of it in the beginning is going to be very much kind of that tit for tat. We just saved $1 billion here, which is going to be used to fund this, whatever it may be. The budget deficit, most likely, I mean, so far, nobody has solved that problem in the past few decades. I don't know if they're going to be able to. I know they're saying that they're going to be able to, and it would be awesome if we could start to cut that deficit down so we stop growing debt so quickly. We'll see if that happens. But yeah, at the end of the day, if they need to, they will just pass budget bills that allow more money to go to immigration. The other thing that they've talked about is, of course, the money that goes to Ukraine, the money that goes to all these different countries, that we're sending too much. I mean, who are we to know? When you're talking billions and billions of dollars, it's just so big and over our heads that it just doesn't even mean anything. It's just a headline. It's not a real number to us anymore. You brought up $20 million per day on the border wall. Well, I mean, to us, that sounds like a ton of money. But when you literally hold a vote overnight and swipe a check for $1 billion, it's like, well, I guess 20 million is not like a big number anymore. But they've talked a lot about that as well, to say that we're going to focus our money and our dollars at home, and we're not going to focus on giving all this money to these other countries. So that would technically be a savings if they do cut back on some of those other programs that they're sending money to right now, to put it more here on the illegal immigration, closing the border, deporting, the illegal criminals, stuff like that.
Actually makes a lot of sense. Just, I would call them international cuts. Like, you just have international cuts that then bring it more domestic, so that we can create more domestic spending instead of international spending. So yeah, I think that's a good balance. I just know I got asked that question the other day. This one's like, oh, great, now Trump's back. The wall's going to be getting built. I'm going to see my taxes going up. And it was a Facebook comment. And so I politely jumped on Facebook and said, no, that's not how that works. Like, they're not taking your tax and saying, hey, you paid 20 grand in taxes this year. I'm going to take that and it's going towards the wall. Like, that's just not how it works. It's you're essentially paying back interest from a loan that we got by increasing the budget to pay for the wall. And so there's just some of the economics that a lot of people don't understand. So I think you did a good job there saying, hey, we're allocating money from our right pocket to go over here. we're going to stop sending it out of our right pocket and we're going to shift that money over to our left pocket, so that we're spending it here domestically on things that truly matter and affect us.
And that's what we hope they do. Whether they will or not, we don't know. Really, when it comes down to it, is people don't want to lose elections. So the last thing they're going to do is try to affect your pocketbook. They are going to do everything that they can to make you think the economy is great. So if they're spending more money, they're not taking it from your pocketbook. I mean, if you look at the election and you talk about a lot of the issues that the Democrats had as far as getting the numbers that they needed, the reality is the economy is hurting. The economy is slumping. Everybody feels it. Everybody feels a pinch. In the physician world, I'm not really sure at that dollar amount if you feel that pinch or you feel that grind. But I know in our apartments and our tenants that are making, $30,000 a year, $50,000 a year, I mean, they are struggling. You see credit cards, we pull credit reports, you see credit cards maxed out. You see missed credit card payments. You see struggling to pay rent. Applications for rental assistance are through the roof. I mean, you can see in real life, the economy is greatly struggling. And it's hard when the economy is struggling to get somebody to vote for you to keep this train going. It's like, I don't know if this is going to get better, but I'm sure not going to chance it with what we currently have. So that's the one thing that people need to understand, is that politics is always meant to win votes. And the last thing they're going to do is try to affect you in a way that is going to lose votes for them. So you can rest assured that they're going to do everything they can to avoid having any economical downside to your pocketbook. And I mean, just for fun, the wall, I mean, I have no idea if the wall will work or not. I have no clue if they're going to build it. I've seen a lot of documentaries. Apparently they do a lot of tunneling. So to me, it's like, I don't know why a wall would work if we're just building tunnels under the border, but who knows? I don't really care, what they do with that, but I would hope. And it seems like this time around, there's a lot of smart people that are surrounding Trump. And you can't expect a president, whether it be Trump, Joe Biden, Kamala, you cannot expect them to know how to build a wall, whether a wall will work, what's going on with the fentanyl crisis, handle Ukraine, what's going on with China, understand tariffs. That just isn't your job as a president to know everything, because it's impossible, literally impossible. That'd be like a physician knowing every surgery, knowing how to do brain surgery, cardiac surgery, orthopedic surgery, also doing internal medicine on the weekends. Like, you just can't do it all. It's impossible. But you have to surround yourself with the people who do know how to do it. Let's say that you're I don't even know exactly how it works. Let's say you're a cardiologist and you're like, hey, we got to go in, we're going to do cardiac and pulmonology. But you might need another surgeon who does that specialty surgery. The goal and what makes you a good doctor is that you can identify and surround yourself with people that make this a successful surgery overall. It's not the goal that you do every step of the way. So I will say that, with the immigration that we're talking about today, I think that he has surrounded himself with people who understand all aspects of it and are very smart to say, listen, if you do that, this is going to be a negative consequence. We may want to rethink that policy. Whether it be deporting people that, might be beneficial to our economy and we really don't want them to leave, or whether that be, hey, man, this wall thing, like, it's symbolic, but they're just building tunnels. So unless this wall goes 500 feet deep into the ground, it's just never going to work. Whatever the case may be, but it seems like he's starting to surround himself with people that are very smart. You can't, it kind of drives me nuts when we see like Elon Musk and Vivek get a ton of press that says like they've never been in politics. It's like, yeah, but what politician has become multi-billionaire? I mean, it's way more impressive to me that you became a billionaire, Elon multi-billionaire. It's like, so these two humans created private sector businesses that turned into billions of dollars, but you've been in politics scamming the system for decades and you're smarter than, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me if you think about it logically, right? Like, if you had somebody who went to med school and lived in med school, all they did was teach and, they're a professor. Let's say, make it even easier. They were an anatomy professor, at an undergrad, and they know everything about anatomy and they talk about, and they've been an anatomy professor for decades. And then you have a surgeon who has done amazing things, all these different surgeries. And you're like, well, that person's an idiot. They haven't been teaching for decades like that person has. It's like, I mean, that's just not, that's not logical. The people who actually have a proven success and track record, I mean, they're smart. They know how it works. So, I mean, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that things will go a lot better. I'm hopeful that the immigration problem will be looked at from a global scale to make sure that we're going to do what's best for the safety of our country, but also what's best for our economy. And I really do think that's what's going to be coming.
That was a good comparison there with anatomy professor and surgeon. It's a good way to think about our listeners can put themselves in those shoes. But final question for you is going to be a tough one. You said earlier, I don't know what the solution is. People are going to figure it out. But if I put you on the spot and say, hey, you are now in charge of immigration, what would be
Yeah.
your first step? Starting in January, like what's the first thing that you would do that is going to not necessarily doing it for the headlines, but is certainly going to make a big wave so that future steps can be taken that have a meaningful impact on this immigration issue. What's that first thing you would do?
I mean, I give you a I've thought about this a lot. Obviously, I do mission work in Guatemala, so I've seen all the sides. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen where people come from. I live in the United States, born, raised, so I see the privilege that I got just by waking up as a baby in the United States. That some people just don't get that right.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see why somebody would be willing to go all the way across that. I mean, people are putting their children on caravans and blindly sending them to the US because life is so bad where they are, and they're hoping to just give their child a chance at prosperity because they hear that the United States is a place to do it. So from an emotional
Mm-hmm.
standpoint, I see the draw to the United States, and I see the great risk that they take in order to have a chance at what we receive just by waking up. So I'm not pro or anti. I think the one thing that I would definitely do is you have to solve the problem with the crimes for sure. Obviously, we own apartment buildings. If we had a gang come
Mm-hmm.
in, a very violent gang, and take over our apartments, I mean, the problem is once you get away with that once and people realize that you can do that, that problem will spread like wildfire and it will be too big to control. If you look at the Mexican cartels, the economy down there, I mean, it's almost a problem that's too big to control in Mexico now, that the cartels are bigger than the government and it's very difficult. So you don't want that problem to keep growing. You have to stop that right away. But if I could wave a magic wand and solve this problem, I would take all of the people that are productive, whether they're here legally or illegally, that are productive citizens of the United States, and I would hammer out a very streamlined, cost-effective way to give them due process to get permanent residency, to continue to work here so that everybody's not living on edge of, am I illegal? Am I getting sent home? Should I be working or not? Because maybe if I'm working, I'm going to get caught. They said they're going to only do criminals in the beginning. I'm not a criminal, but what if I mean, it just creates, we've talked about it a million times, right? In finance as well. Uncertainty creates stress, and that stress causes major issues. So I would give certainty to say, listen, if you have not committed a crime in the United States and you're here illegally, you are not getting blindly deported. We are going to have a due process. The goal of the due process is not to deport you. The goal of the due process is to make sure you have not committed crimes and then give you residency here so you can continue living the life that you've been living. I think that's one of the most important things, because right now the problem is, and I mean, like I said, I see it a little bit more personally than I think most people. But the problem is that people are scared to even go apply for residency or even make a court appearance because now you're there. If you are turned down for residency, you're in the hands of the government. You are now going back home.
Mm-hmm.
That is the fear that is coming. So the risk of going for the legal process is too great, because if you are turned down, you are now getting deported. And that risk is too great there. So I think you have to resolve that risk. You have to find a way to give them a true option to legally stay here and get that due process. I don't know what that looks like because there's just so many attorneys involved. The courts are so backed up already. It's like, that's really what comes down to, is we're just so inefficient and we're so expensive to get anything done that, I mean, you can't expect an illegal immigrant here who wants to just raise his family and he's working at Tyson making 40 grand a year. You can't expect him to be able to afford an attorney, wait for 3 years for a court appearance, pay the attorney to go there. It gets continued. Now you got to wait another 8 months. I mean, it's just a broken system. But if we could fix that system, I think that would do amazing things for our country.
No, I think that would be a solid first start. I mean, cost effective? No. Your solution is certainly not cost effective, but as you were talking, it does kind of sound like the roundup that Trump was mentioning, but really in your eyes, it's more of just a separation to say, okay, let's say for round numbers, there's 10 million illegal immigrants and 1 million of them have committed crimes. And we can see that through the legal system, who's been arrested, who's been convicted, all of those things. You separate those 1 million out and say, okay, they're out of here. The other 9 million, okay, we have all of your names. We know who you are. And maybe a lot of it, we might not know who they are, but like, hey, we have the 9 million now that are going to be productive members of our society. Let's streamline this to get you to a point where you have that clarity and you have that certainty that, you don't have to keep looking over your shoulder, wondering if ICE or the police are going to come grab you and take you back to your home country. I think that's a solid first step. That would at least, then you have 9 million people that have some certainty of what their next steps are going to be. And then it allows them to, I mean, honestly, if I put myself in their shoes, like if I had that certainty, my mindset would be like, okay, let's go through this process. Let's do the right things, because then I want to be an active member of the United States economy and the entire process, and being able to know that I'm wanted, right? And I'm useful and I have a purpose. I think that would change the mindset of so many illegal immigrants if they had that certainty in their life.
Yeah, and the problem is, right, it always comes back to politics, is it's very hard to give somebody that trust and certainty when you just ran a campaign trail saying, I'm sending everybody back to their countries. It's hard to gain that trust when you just said that. But on the flip side, the Democratic side, it's very tough. It's like, well, you open the borders wide open, and you kind of created this as well, where people are like, dude, now's our chance to sneak in. Like, borders are open. Let's go. I mean, like I said, there is no doubt. I go to Guatemala. There is no doubt that they know when the borders are open and when the borders are closed. There is 100%. I promise you that when things get tough on the border, word is very quickly spread. And when things are wide open, word is very quickly spread. And it happens overnight. But that is the thing, is politics has ruined the ability for fair and legal immigration because it's such a sticking point. So you have the immigrants who are trying to gain that trust, right? That this is a true and fair system, and this is actually how it's going to work. Then you have the voters who voted for Trump. Some people voted for Trump because they truly want him to round everybody up and send them back to their countries. They have never once thought about the economical impacts of that. They have never considered anything besides the fact of illegal immigrant, go home. That is as deep as the thought has ever gone. So it's very difficult for Trump to come out and say, listen, we've considered all the facts. Actually, here's the best plan. The people that are here illegally and productive workers in our economy, it's actually better that they stay here. We're going to give them a process to stay here legally. You can't do that because now these crazies who think that everybody should just get sent home and they're like beating the drum, you just lost their vote, because now it's like, well, you lied to me. So you told immigrants we're sending everybody home. Now you got to try to regain their trust. Then you told other people who vote for you, we're sending them all back. And now you're going to say, maybe we're not. And now you lost the trust with that guy. It's like a double-edged sword. And that's the problem with politics, is they back themselves into a corner where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And you're kind of stuck doing not what's right, but what's going to win the votes. And that's really what it always comes down to, right? Is there are better solutions, but it doesn't guarantee you a winning vote next time. And those better solutions don't rise to the top then if they come with a lost vote.
For sure. And that avatar you just talked about, that was evident with the presidential election. There was 8 counties in southern Texas along the Rio Grande River that for the last 120 years have voted Democrat. Like that's where, Texas is a very red state. We all know that. But like, there are some counties in Texas that are very Democratic, and they voted for Trump this year. And I believe what you just said, that it was hey, we're going to crack down. We're going to send everybody out, because they're the ones feeling it the most. They're kind of the front lines as people are coming across the border. Those 8 counties along the river they're seeing it the most. They're having people walk through their backyards throughout the day. And so that was very evident based on what Trump said, that those counties got his vote because of what they're seeing and what he was saying he was going to promise. So it's going to be a double-edged sword for him. It's going to be very tricky over his first, let's call it 90 days on the topic of immigration, on how he's going to handle that.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think that, you asked about the solution. I do think it's already started this way. And I think that is part of the first solution as well, is to secure the border for now. We have a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to figure it out. While we're figuring this out, stop letting people come across, because we're just going to let the bleeding continue. We don't even know what to do already. We're going to try to figure it out. Let's at least slow things down and stop the entry of illegal immigrants until we figure out what the heck we're going to do going forward.
Absolutely. All right, Mike, this has been a good one. We'll come back next week with more Daily Dollar based on articles that we find online. Give you the no BS response for it. Talk to you later.
See you, man.